There is a possibility, a strong possibility, that Rishi Sunak's car was bugged by China. Our Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, has flown to Beijing, and he probably won't mention a word about it. Like, just think about the weight of power, the power dynamic between us. Right, you've got the UK, population 65 million. Then you've got China, 1.4 billion. Bit uneven. You've got UK GDP is 3 trillion. 3 trillion. You've got China, 17 trillion. You've got a UK military budget that's 45 billion. Ooh, that sounds a lot, doesn't it? China's annual military budget, not 45 billion, 176 billion. The UK is desperate for trade deals. China is about to become the world's biggest economy. Like, Cleverly is going to walk in that meeting like fucking... Like, you know that scene in Braveheart? I don't know if you remember this one, but like, it's so darkly funny, this scene in Braveheart. It's the thing where King Edward is talking about... He's talking about some military problem that he has. The King of England. And his son is in the room with him. His son has a very effeminate but chatty friend who's always possibly a gay lover. It's sort of alluded to there. I don't know. I got that kind of vibe from them. Anyway, and the chatty, effeminate friend is a little bit too overconfident, a little bit too chatty. And he basically starts talking to King Edward. Like, he's like, well, you should do this, you know, or maybe we could do that, you know. And he's like, he thinks he's on a conversational playing field level with this king. And then the king just sort of like calmly, like, you could tell he's not really, like, the king just asked him a question. He just goes, oh, all right, okay, that's really interesting. And could you just tell me, if you could just advise me then, what would you do about... And then he just lifts him up and throws him out the fucking window to his death. That is the dynamic of Cleverly in a room with China right now. We are not in the driving seat. We are not on a level conversational playing field. However much these weird blitzy bellends think we're in some Britannia rules the waves movie, that is not the reality that we inhabit. We are very much a tiny little island of expiring relevance. We are a bit part extra in a movie about China and Russia and India and the US. Like, this is the cruel irony, really, of all of this, is that it's the people who cling on to this idea of, you know, rule Britannia and Churchill and all that. They can't help but propel the tadpoles into the threads of their boxers at the thought of a titan, world power Britain running and ruling the world, you know, and yet it is their pet projects and total incompetence that is seeing the precise opposite of that shit from happening. And the longer we take to reverse this, the worse the damage is going to be. It's like Tony Blair said, like in that interview. I think I've quoted him before on the podcast, but he said in this interview, he was like, you know, we have a choice of where we want to be in this world. And that choice is to either be part of a geopolitical bloc that has power and influence through military and trade, or as a standalone island that gets pushed around by the geopolitical blocks. Like, it really is that simple. We can either rejoin or very, very closely align with the EU, or we can remove ourselves from the table entirely and have none of that unity and strength, you know, and then have to deal with the consequences of going it alone, cut adrift. And the consequences of that will inevitably be that we become about as influential and powerful as what? As a dainty 19-year-old boy who's getting butt-fucked and passed around the prison wing by all the different prison gangs.